The machinery is already running. Project 2025 and the new American authoritarianism introduction. Tyranny does not knock. It walks in. Democracy, when it dies, does not announce itself. It does not slam the door with finality. It simply stops working, bit by bit. Routines remain. Institutions still stand. Laws are passed, budgets are signed. But the content beneath the surface has changed. Language becomes propaganda. Law becomes performance. Power flows in one direction only. This is the condition of the United States today. The second Trump administration is not a return. It is a departure. It is not a replay of 2017 to 2021, but something far more disciplined, coordinated, and structurally dangerous. Unlike his first term, which often floundered in chaos and contradiction, Trump's second term is backed by a machine. A set of detailed ideological instructions known as Project 2025, now in active deployment across every level of the federal government. The architects of Project 2025 did not hide their ambitions. They published them. And now, with a second Trump presidency in place and loyalists seated throughout the bureaucracy, their ambitions are becoming facts. This is not a hypothetical future. It is the present reality of American governance. The purge has already begun. Schedule F and the collapse of civil service in the opening weeks of Trump's second term. Executive Order 13,957 was reinstated. Thousands of federal employees, analysts, scientists, economists, attorneys, were reclassified under the revived Schedule F, making them, at will, workers subject to immediate dismissal. Within weeks, agencies saw the removal of individuals deemed politically unreliable. Offices that once relied on career expertise were hollowed out and repopulated with ideologues drawn from right-wing think tanks and partisan organizations. This purge is not random. It is systematized. It is designed to eliminate the neutral state, the very concept that governance should be separate from party loyalty. In its place now stands a version of government that answers not to law or precedent, but to presidential will. In the past, these dismissals might have sparked internal revolt. But under the threat of blacklisting, surveillance, and a reworked whistleblower system, dissent has become riskier. Already, departments like the EPA, DOJ, and CDC operate in paralysis or complicity, silenced not by law, but by fear and the ever-present threat of dismissal. The presidency is thrown. The unitary executive becomes operational. What was once an academic theory has become operational doctrine. The unitary executive theory now defines Trump's governance. Independent agencies, long protected from direct political interference, have been folded into the executive hierarchy. The Department of Justice takes its cues from the West Wing. The Federal Trade Commission has had its mandate redirected toward anti-woke investigations. Intelligence reports are now filtered through political appointees before reaching the National Security Council. Checks no longer check. Balances no longer balance. In press briefings, spokespeople refer to the president's directive as the supreme guiding principle, regardless of statutory authority. Legal scholars, now marginalized or dismissed, refer to the dynamic unfolding as a soft autogol, a self-coup from within the state. The result is a presidency no longer constrained by institutional norms. It legislates through executive order. It prosecutes through directives. It punishes dissent through administrative tools. This is no longer theory. It is reality, a presidency without rivals, surrounded by law-shaped weapons. Historical precedent. The administrative coup is playbook. What we are witnessing follows a recognizable pattern. In the 1930s, Mussolini centralized all executive ministries under his direct control while retaining the external trappings of parliament. Hitler, through the Gleichschaltung laws, synchronized every institution of public life, press, police, education, civil service, under National Socialist authority. Neither regime abolished the state. They repurposed it. So too with Trump's second term. The State Department has been restructured to align foreign aid with America First cultural imperatives. USAID has shifted funding away from women's health and LGBTQ protections. Domestic agencies now require patriotic compliance reviews, evaluating whether internal staff and contractors reflect the ideological goals of the administration. This is not bureaucracy. It is political warfare by administrative means. The authoritarian use of language, from slogan to policy in the first term, Trump's incendiary language, retribution, bloodbath, enemies of the people, was treated as rhetorical excess. Now, in the second term, that language has become policy logic. At immigration checkpoints, agents have been given expanded discretion to label activists, attorneys, and journalists as national security threats. In internal agency documents, terms like radical left influence, woke science, and cultural Marxism appear as justification for dismissals or program cancellations. Authoritarian regimes depend on language that narrows moral choices. Opponents are not mistaken, they are traitors. Journalists are not critics, they are enemies. Agencies are not flawed, they are infiltrated. In such a system, everything becomes war, and every action becomes defense. Project 2025 operationalizes this worldview. The terms of public policy are no longer rational or empirical. They are mythic, rooted in grievance and metaphysical struggle. Once politics is cast in terms of salvation and sin, compromise becomes collaboration, and negotiation becomes surrender. Religion and state merge. Christian nationalism as governance. The second Trump administration has embedded religious nationalism into the federal structure. Under the directives of Project 2025, education grants have been redirected toward faith-based institutions. Diversity, equity, and inclusion offices across federal departments have been shuttered. Reproductive rights have been further curtailed through agency rule rewrites and executive memos encouraging state-level criminalization. The Department of Education now promotes biblical principles in civic education. HHS has adopted guidance aligning public health materials with traditional family values. LGBTQ protections in federal hiring have quietly disappeared from agency websites. This is not the pluralistic governance envisioned by the framers. It is a moralized state in which only one worldview is treated as legitimate. What we see emerging is not American democracy. It is a softer version of clerical authoritarianism, an American Orbanism in which policy is faith-based and dissent is unholy. Force and fear. The domestic use of power. The reworking of the Insurrection Act in the early months of Trump's second term was a turning point. Under new legal interpretations issued by the Office of Legal Counsel, the president now claims the authority to deploy military forces domestically without state consent, for the purpose of quelling civil disorder linked to ideological extremism. This has already been tested. Protests in major cities following the shuttering of abortion clinics were met with joint task forces combining federal marshals, ICE agents, and military police. Journalists covering these events faced restricted access and occasional detention. Several nonprofits have since reported audits, visits from federal investigators, or the freezing of federal grants. What was once feared, the politicization of force, is now active policy. In the language of history, this is the normalization of emergency. It is not a suspension of democracy. It is democracy's conversion into something else. Truth dismantled. The destruction of shared reality. Under Project 2025, the war on truth has become institutionalized. The CDC no longer publishes certain public health statistics that contradict the administration's narrative. Climate science reports are pre-reviewed by political officers. Federal websites have removed references to systemic racism, gender equity, and reproductive autonomy. Public broadcasting budgets have been zeroed out. Grants to research universities have been conditioned on ideological neutrality. Science has become suspect. History has become selective. Post-truth was once a cultural critique. It is now a federal directive. A functioning democracy requires a shared factual world. Autocracy survives by destroying it. Conclusion. The crisis is not coming. It is here. The implementation of Project 2025 under Trump's second term is no longer a warning. It is an event in progress. We are not standing at the edge. We have crossed the threshold. The Republic is not dead. But it is sick. And its recovery depends not on institutions alone, but on the willingness of its citizens to recognize what is happening, and to name it. Authoritarianism does not arrive only through violence. It arrives through policy. Through memos. Through firings. Through silence. Through the slow, methodical replacement of a free state with an obedient one. There is still time. But not much. Thanks for watching. Stay stronger. Stay smarter. Stay informed. Like and subscribe for more information and updates.